I've never noticed it.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AAA podcast. Today, Anthony and I are joined by someone who we've been looking forward to having on the show for quite some time. She's a very experienced performance coach at the collegiate level and currently serves as the assistant director of sports performance at Auburn University, where she works primarily with soccer. Malorie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess the first kind of question I have as far as your background goes, you don't have to touch on these a ton, but kind of looking through your resume, you have a lot of experience at a lot of different universities and a lot of really big ones and successful ones in sports at that. Is there anything you kind of want to talk about as far as your path goes there, or just kind of shouting out where you've been at all?
Yeah, I think that when people look at my resume, for some people, it may seem like an alarming thing that I've been a lot of places in pretty much a short period of time, like I think 5 year span. But I think when I look at everywhere I've been, it's all come down to like building relationships. And every job I've had after my internship is just strictly about relationships and people I've met and being at the right place at the right time and networking with the right people. So yeah, like brief background, did an internship at TCU, 8 week internship. I knew nothing and I basically begged for the GA position and I was lucky enough to get it. And then after that, took a part-time job at UNC. First full-time gig at Baylor. I was there for 2.5 years, did an internship in the MLS during my time there. Spent 6 months at NC State, intended to be there a lot longer, but this position came open and ultimately it led me to work for my boss now, who is a mentor to me and I met during my time at UNC. So
That's awesome. I think, obviously there's a lot of experience to be gained from jumping around and experiencing different places, but just different cultures as far as the programs go as well. So I was looking at your resume and I was like, wow, that's super cool. I hope that
yeah,
someday my resume looks like a list like that.
it's been
Um,
a unique experience too. Just I've worked with so many, right? And my niche is soccer. So at this point, like everything I do is focused around soccer, and that was the end goal for me all along. But I've worked with a vast variety of like soccer coaches that have different philosophies and style of play and just how they want to carry their program and the expectations. So that's been a unique journey as well because I've been a part of now being at Auburn and being at Baylor. Both programs were being rebuilt when I got there. So that's been a unique experience.
and then you were a soccer player in college yourself, yes?
Yes, I played at a small NAIA school in Michigan called Spring Arbor. So I didn't have a strength coach there. I grew up in a private sector facility, so went back home, and that guy has been my strength coach since the time I was in middle school. But yep, Spring Arbor, Michigan, not much in the town, small little NAIA school. I always tell athletes that even come on visits, like Auburn might not be the place for you, but there's somewhere to play your sport if you love your sport enough.
For sure. Okay, outside of that, we kind of have this intro level question that we like to start the conversation off with. It's about caffeine intake for coaches.
Oh.
Just if you want to speak to your relationship with caffeine, how much we're drinking a day, your main forms of it, kind of just what gets you through a day.
Yeah, my caffeine intake, I've healed my addiction. I would say I went sober of caffeine for a little while, actually. And I drink plain black coffee. I'm not an energy drink girl. I used to do that. Back in my GA days, I would pound like 3 cups of coffee before 9 a.m. and then I'd have a Red Bull before football practice. Now it's just 1 cup of coffee. If I'm really feeling crazy, it's maybe 2, but just straight black, Americano.
And as far as that black coffee goes, is that something you just kind of like the taste of, or do you feel like the caffeine effects actually weighing on you?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
I always wish that we have the nutrition stations and we have like protein bars and shakes. I wish we had like a caffeine station where you could just get like whatever
That
kind of energy drink
Anthony,
or
that's such
coffee.
a bro. That's such a bro thing to say.
It'd be just cool if you could like go up and have maybe instead of like uh water bottle stations, we had like coffee stations where you could just
I mean, I
get
do.
unlimited coffee.
I do enjoy. I think you can find that some places. You can find that some places. I've been to a few places where we would like froth our protein to like make like a latte. I won't lie. Me and my current boss, when we were at UNC together, we would do that. We'd froth the protein to put in our coffee.
That's something. Just this last year, a couple of the athletes grabbed a bunch of protein shakes in the morning. They said they like put it into their coffee, like they do the same things. They like froth it and pour it into their coffee, and I'd never heard of that. That was funny to me.
Protein coffee, and that's a big thing. Dr. Stacy Sims actually talked about this on a podcast. Maybe it was Huberman Lab. I'm not sure. I've listened to so many podcasts she's been on, but it just talks about, right, as women need protein intake in the morning in comparison to males, like y'all can go like all day without eating until like 12 o'clock. Women really just hormonally, it's best for us to get protein in within 30 minutes of waking up. So protein coffee is a great thing for that in particular. I have other ways I get my protein in the morning, but that is something I used to do.
Super interesting.
Could be a big business opportunity there. Someone needs to
Yeah.
get in on that, get their foot in the door, and become the people, though.
I've seen it at like supplement stores, but it's just very expensive. Like it's probably cheaper again just to go to the nutrition station, steal a protein shake, and put it in your coffee. I lost connection for a little bit. Sorry.
You're good. Do you want to go ahead and ask the first one here?
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't know how to read this in. One of the things that I like about you on social media is one, like you kind of go by this thing, and I think it's on your bio of fearlessly authentic.
Wow, I didn't know people actually read the bio.
Oh yeah, I read it all the time. But going on with that, one of the questions I have is, what is something about your job that people from the outside don't see or understand?
I don't even know if it goes necessarily like with my bio, but I think something that people on the outside looking at my job don't see all like the day-to-day mundane tasks that I do. Like it goes so much further than just training athletes in the weight room or conditioning them on a field. I know we were talking about this before the podcast even started. Like my role within the soccer program is so much more than that. And I'd say I'm like a very intricate part of the success of our program, just the day-to-day aspects, right? I'm at every single practice session. I run the warm-up, I run the cool down. If there's speed, acceleration, additional conditioning work, I'm doing that. I run the GPS, live tracking, and tagging at practice. I'm having conversations with our coaching staff in the midst of the training session, just based around individual athletes and where their load and intensity is at, or the collective group as a whole. With that, I'm sitting in on meetings every single day around practice planning, right? I'm not picking drill selection, but I'm educating our coaching staff and athletic medicine staff on physical periodization. And from there, that educates our coaches on, okay, what drills do we select on given days based off of pitch sizes and dimensions of drills, or players, or the density within a drill within a space. After practice, right, I'm downloading all the data from the GPS units, analyzing it. I have a steady workflow now of like reporting and what the report looks like, but I'm sending that via email to coaching staff, athletic medicine, speaking into like individual things that need to be highlighted, whether it's something from that specific day or it needs to be highlighted for the days to come or week to come, and tweaks we need to be making to different sessions or for individual athletes. I handle our wellness reporting. So our athletes complete a wellness report every day. Right. I don't think that's the end all be all of our staff values it. And so I send that all in its way, and I check up on athletes from that. I travel, I meet with recruits. I think people look at my job and like, oh, cool, this girl like works out and conditions athletes. And that's it. And it's like, wow, I do so much more than that.
I think from like the position of an intern or a GA where you're working with multiple sports, and then you see someone working with one sport, you're like, oh, it must be so much easier just working with one sport because you only have to program for one sport. But when really it's like you're kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to helping the performance side of soccer, not only just strength and conditioning, but also like holistically.
Right. And I think I didn't recognize that as an intern. You made a great point. I didn't recognize that as an intern. I didn't even recognize it as a GA, right? Because I had other sport responsibilities. Now I only have soccer. I can't tell my coach, no, I can't do that. He's like, well, what else are you doing? Right. I have other tasks within the department, but he's gonna be like, what else are you doing? Where in the past, I've always had kind of something to fall back on of like, oh, I've got softball or got to be at acro and tumbling, this is going on, where now it's like I'm so fully embedded. There's not an excuse for me not to be at practice, to not travel, to not be in meetings. There are times where it's like I'm human and have other things going on, but I think that's something that a lot of young coaches in intern or GA roles like just don't recognize. When you become full-time, it just takes it up another notch. Like you're in meetings with coaches now and athletic trainers and having to make like decisions and think critically in the moment of how to respond and make adjustments on the fly, right? Where as a GA and intern, you still kind of have this like protection over you.
I
It
think
seems
it's
like, sorry, go
you go,
ahead.
Ant.
I was gonna say it seems like sometimes strength and conditioning coaches are put on the lower end of the totem pole. Did you have to like advocate for yourself? I know you talked about like providing information to the sports medicine staff and the sports coaches. Did you have to like vouch for yourself, or was that something that would be understood when you went to Auburn?
When Auburn, each experience has been different, and Auburn's been different because the coach I work with now, our staff is phenomenal. Um, we're really passionate. We want to win. We are going to do anything in our might to make sure our team is the most prepared. But and our coach basically told me when he hired me, like, you're going to be the most important hire I make. And I'm like, whoa, like, no, I'm not. Like, you know, the most important hire you're going to make every single student athlete you recruit to this university. So I don't have to vouch for my role at Auburn because our coach values my role. That I think stems from previous strength coaches that he's had and how he's valued them and seen the work that they've done. So I applaud them for their work. And I applaud our head coach for seeing the value in my role and the different ways I can support the program outside of just being, the meathead strength coach in the weight room and in the gym. Other places, I think at NC State, our women's head coach, he saw the value and understood my role. Where on the men's side, he valued me, but he had never had a strength coach that was like, loved the game of soccer. So that was different, right? I'm like, oh, like I have this background, I understand the sport to this depth. I'm more than just the weight room person. So for me in that role, I had to prove my value when it came to like running a warm up. So simple, but they were used to like a coach doing that. When it came to GPS and educating a staff, and then other places, it's been different things. But I think I've been really fortunate enough to work with coaches who don't really ask a ton of questions in a manner where they're like countering what I have to say. I think just everything I've done through relationship building has really helped just establish some trust.
As far as like going in and now working with maybe like a new group of girls, a new team over the summer, what is it like on your end to kind of try to build that trust with that group as well and try to build that up quickly so you guys can get to work as soon as possible?
Yeah, just I'll speak into like right now. Our program at Auburn, we have 14 returners, 13 incoming athletes, 6 of them are freshmen. So that makes 7 transfers. So for me, the foundation was laid 4 months ago, 5 months ago now with our incoming freshmen. So I got on a Zoom call with them 5 months ago, gave them a training program. They did a training program for 4 months and had contact with me almost every 3 days. With everything in Train Heroic. So there was no questions asked of what the expectation was. So that they got here on campus in a pretty good place. I think this freshman class arrived on campus because of that back work in the best place that I've had a freshman class arrive. Aside from maybe a group I worked with at Baylor that were just a bunch of dogs. And then for the transfers, right, I have a bunch of like 5th years, seniors. I'm only going to have them for a semester. So I need to meet these kids where they are. Some of them signed 2 weeks before we got on campus. We had a girl from a JUCO signed 2 weeks before coming on campus. She's like, what's strength coach? I have another international girl who she didn't understand the difference between the athletic trainer and I because she's just used to a physio. So I think long-winded answer to your question is I just meet these kids where they are, but I don't waver from my standard. So like who I am as a coach, like I'm loud and I'm demanding. And I jokingly asked the kids this and recorded it a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, describe my coaching personality. And people are like, aggressive, violent, intimidating, loving. Like people said loving. And then some people are like, just fucking do it. Like literally that's what they were saying, So but I think that loving piece is always in there as well. I have really high expectations for these kids. But at this point in the year, I'm just meeting them where they are, but not wavering from my standard.
I'm curious on how you find the middle ground between, and not that they can't be, but finding the middle ground between like loving, but then also being aggressive. Like, I guess
Okay,
both ends of the spectrum.
demanding, Anthony. We're gonna go with demanding.
Demanding, sorry.
Um,
He's demanding.
Yeah, I go back. I didn't always get it right. I have stories of not getting it right. I have stories of not getting it right recently in the last year. And I think all those experiences obviously have helped me grow and evolve and like change my philosophy on things. I go back to when I was a kid. I have two younger brothers. I used to complain when I felt like my brothers were getting special treatment. Like, I didn't get that. You didn't pay for my haircut when I went to college, you know? And I remember my dad telling me, he's like, we love each of you kids equally and the same, but how we're going to care for you in different moments is a result of what you need in that moment, right? Your brother needs different things in this season of life that you didn't need, vice versa. So I think that correlates exactly to coaching. Some of my athletes aren't going to respond well to the same approach. So knowing who I am, I'm loud and demanding, and I used to have one volume and one voice, and that was calling you out in front of the whole group and holding you accountable. I've had to pivot that, and I can still be this loud and demanding person, but sometimes that needs to be more one-on-one with athletes, because I've lost athletes when I'm like that in front of the whole group, and that's just not how they're going to receive information well. And that can be really frustrating at times, but I've come to learn that's just part of the art of coaching, right? Like, I have to, again, meet the kids where they are. I can't be frustrated because they can't take of me screaming at them in front of a bunch of other people. I probably actually wouldn't like that either. So, but some kids can take it. So it's been a learning experience. So I just have figured out who can handle it, who can't, who's more soft spoken. I think just as you get to know kids and are in the training environment and around them every single day, like, it becomes pretty clear.
As you mentioned briefly before, you've worked throughout your career with a couple other sports aside from soccer as well. Do you find that same thing with other sports where you kind of have to kind of find how they respond to your coaching style and morph it a little bit to that group? And does that change based on the sport you're working with?
Yeah, I'll go back to when I was a GA and I worked with football. So I worked with football at TCU during my internship and my GA position, right? And during my time at TCU, I was the only woman on staff. There was two interns that came through during my year and a half there that were female. So I only saw two other females during my time there coaching. And people, my boss, Don Summer, love him, but he used to always be like, Mama Mal, like, here comes Mama Mal. Like, there are some guys that would like come in and like, I was like the motherly figure in the building sometimes, like, I'm more feminine, I'm more soft spoken. And that was just the role that I took on, where other guys, like, we were getting at it after it, and I was yelling at them just as much as my male counterparts were yelling at them. So I think, right, I just, again, learned who responded well to what and at what point they needed that, right? Some of those guys that I had more like closer relationships and were more softer spoken with and like supported them with things maybe outside of the weight room and had that type of connection with, there would be moments in training like I just had to get on them and be harsh and be demanding, right? But then you just have to know like when kids need a different type of love. Like, okay, you need tough love right now, right? You need a little bit more softer spoken, supportive, caregiver love in this moment.
Kind of transitions into one of the questions we also had, which is like, throughout your career, have there been, or what are the obstacles you faced being a female strength coach?
I feel like people, when they ask this question or when other females answer this question sometimes, right, and not all, look for people to talk about like sexism or conflict with male counterparts or how they've been belittled. And while I definitely have experienced things like that, it's not a result of just working in athletics. That's just the result of any career path. And I think something I've struggled with more as being a female in a male dominant field is just like finding who my identity is as a woman, right? And I kind of talked about how I spent so much time working with all men, and I felt like I had to like morph myself into like their energy and how they carried themselves. I had to like train like a dude, eat like a dude, talk like a dude. Like, I just took on this like bro about me. And it really wasn't. I went to UNC, and that's the first time I worked with a female strength coach, Jordan, who's now my boss. But it really wasn't until I was at Baylor that I just kind of like embraced more like my feminine side. Like, okay, maybe I will like wear my hair down to work today. Like, if I'm coaching, my hair's up. Like, I'll walk into work with my hair down. I'll put mascara on. I'll get my nails done. I'll like be a girl because like that's who I am. And I don't always have to have, yes, I can be like this gritty person that has a lot of intensity and is gonna train hard and get after it. But also I can like be this softer side of myself as well. So I think that's probably what I've wrestled with the most, just being a woman in this world full of men.
I think that's like a cool perspective too, just from the side of like being a support figure and a role model for athletes. I think a lot of times we clump athletes into this like one kind of like personality group of like they're people that just really want to play their sport. They're really athletic and they just want to go out and perform. But I think there's a whole side like so when you step back from sports where people have their lives and they want to be able to be them, and having someone, whether it's a coach figure or another, a teammate or a player that like lives like kind of unapologetically them is really big for that support as well.
Yeah, and I think you see it more now in women's sports. Like girls are just being girls, and like if they put up right, I'm not like, oh, I'm wearing a full face of makeup to work because you won't catch me doing that. But like, there's girls out here, like, there's some track athletes that like, or in a softball athlete that will like full on do some like crazy makeup and have like this whole, it's like art on their face, right? When they're performing, and it's just like another way of expression for them. So that's been like really neat to see. I think you've seen it in the male sports, right? Like the tunnel pictures. I think like women are getting more into that on like professional side and like the college space. So I think we're just seeing overall across the board, like male and female athletes like express themselves more outside of just being an athlete.
Kind of transitioning once again, taking another step back, being at some of these bigger colleges over the last couple of years and seeing how NIL has kind of come in and affected, what players are coming into certain programs. Have you seen any effects on in your world and your side of things?
I think clearly NIL is having an impact across the board. I don't think it is influencing so much like at within my sport of women's soccer that I work with, that population, like athletes making decisions to go certain places. I think there are 100% programs that have more money and can offer athletes money, but the top programs that are probably already recruiting the top kids, like I don't think it's a trickle down effect that's affecting that many programs right now. Now maybe it can grow and expand, but it's not like a football or basketball where like you're fighting to get a kid just about money, because they might ask for money. They will. The kids will call and be like, okay, how much NIL can I get? It's probably not a lot. I don't ask those questions. I'm not involved in those conversations. I don't want to know. But it's not like our counterparts at other SEC schools are offering a ton of money either, right? I think where we're seeing the influence of NIL is now our Olympic sports are getting less resources, and it's impacting universities and athletic departments and our Olympic sport programs in different ways across the country. So for example, so we lost our dining hall at Auburn, right? So all of our student athletes used to have access to a dining hall, and now we don't have access to a dining hall. Well, that's a very large expense for a sport program to take on. And now you're going to ask college athletes to make all their meals or go to Chipotle for every meal. Like, that's also not the answer. So I think, right, again, like that's just how it's influencing us here. At other schools, it's probably influencing in other ways that people in the outside world just aren't seeing, right? It's influencing budget cuts within the program, how we travel, then that influences how athletes recover, because are we staying an extra night at a hotel, or are we busing home and not getting home till 5 in the morning?
And that's something that I've seen a lot too, is that I feel like people don't always respect the support staff, and it seems like it's the first area to get cut when really like the people on the support staff are the ones who see each individual athlete, I guess depending on what university you're at, but each individual athlete, and they see him every single day. And that kind of goes along to what you're saying, where a lot of it's about relationships, and you're kind of taking away the relationship aspect when you take away support staff. And then it's not like the problem, or it's not like it's going to go away. Like you said, taking away the dining hall, it saves money, but then that's like, now how are these kids going to get food because they need food?
Yeah, and I think, right, and to touch on your point of just like being a support staff member, it's just you have to prove your value every single day. And I think you don't see it as much again in our sports, but I look at like I wouldn't want to work in football or basketball and right now, like you have to basically recruit your kids every single day when they show up, or they're just going to threaten to leave. I think there's some of that. I don't think kids are threatening to leave, but it's just like, oh, if I'm unhappy, I will leave because there's the transfer portal. But I'm basically doing the same thing every day. Like I have to show up to work every day and I'm proving like why I have a job and like why are you gonna keep me and like why am I the best in the country at what I do. But also with that, like I would tell anyone in my position, or a position as a strength coach, like you want to find the right fit, a place to work and be working for someone that you value and your morals align with, in this day and age, and have a backup plan. So this is my plan A. Trust me when I say I have a plan B, in my back pocket, and getting it up and running so that one day when things go south, I can happily walk away.
If you're willing to, I do want to talk about this, like closing down the dining hall, because I didn't know about that. I just found out about it from you. But I'm curious, kind of how you've worked around that, especially when dealing with maybe incoming freshmen who might not have developed like good eating habits already, and now they don't have like access to easy food. Are there like plans that you've put in place to help them A, learn how to cook, or B, find good food options?
Yeah, right. When I say like close down the dining hall, we had a student athlete only dining hall. Some schools have this, some schools don't. At Auburn, it's student athlete only. That dining hall still exists. It's just that it's not student athlete only, and you don't just get meals to it anymore, right? So you have to like buy a meal plan. Your meal plan has to be a part of your scholarship, whatever, right? We have taken the steps as a soccer coaching staff, sports medicine, sports psych, performance, dietitians, all the way down the line of like, how are we going to support our athletes in this? We've known about this before school ended, and the steps have been taken to make sure our athletes are going to get fed and are going to have meals. But for me, it comes down to education, right? And that's not my job. That's why we have a full-time dietitian who educates our student athletes on what it looks like to fuel post practice, right? Carbs, protein, healthy fats. How do you go, right? We have red cards. So how do you go to a Chipotle or Chick-fil-A and pick the right meal to have before a practice or after a practice when you have something in the morning? So there's things in place that are supporting our student athletes. They're just fine. It's just that things are evolving and changing and it looks different. And the way that these things are being supported budget wise is different.
Gotcha.
One of the questions I have is, I guess it kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier, but what is your coaching style like on the floor? I know you like kind of mentioned it, but I guess if you just run us through what it looks like a day training with you and your soccer team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of go back to like the three words I hit on. Like, I'm loud, demanding, and loving. But that I think it's important to note that I wear a lot of different hats in the program. So, who I am in the weight room, how I carry myself is different than who I am when I'm running a warm up for practice. Who I am running a conditioning session and who I am running the cool down are different. Now, I think at my core, I'm those three words, right? But in the weight room, I think this group, even though I've only been with them for a month, like we've moved mountains and are in a really great place and we can have a lot of fun. So we turn the music up, we get after it, we can joke around, and I can have like funny conversations and like shoot the shit with the kids in that space and know our work can still get done. Now, if they're doing something wrong, music's gonna stop and I'm like, the other day, kids were I'm like, when did we start sitting down during lift? And then it's like this awkward silence. I'm like, all right, someone turn the music back on. Here we go. Like I have those moments where like in the weight room, that's like my space. Like that's my safe place and where I'm like most comfortable. And so I think you see that if you watch me coach. And then on the field for warm up, right? There's a standard. I hold the kids to a standard. It's a little bit more lax because I'm not trying to like run like a military warm up before we like go into soccer practice where kids are going to be like creative on the ball. So there's some like laxity in that. But like if we're running, right, there's standards. If we're running speed session, okay, I say 10 yards, run 12 yards. Like that's my MO. Start with your foot behind the line. I'm going to hold people accountable to that. And then during like a cool down, it's like way more laid back after practice. It's like I'm trying to go into like namaste mode, which I don't know how to get into, but I'm not yelling. I'm just kind of like speaking, but if you're doing something wrong, like, I'm going to let you know.
To go with that, something that's affecting like the strength and conditioning, um, I guess, profession and how they do things is the transfer portal. Um, Specifically because like you're probably not guaranteed to have an athlete for 4 years, maybe not even 2 years. How has that altered your standards and expectations when it comes to your team, or what are some obstacles you faced with that?
No, I think that early on in my career, I thought that what my job had a greater influence on like wins and losses. And that, you know, making athletes bigger, stronger, faster would influence being a better soccer team. And I think right with the transfer portal, I found that like that's not the case. I don't have 4 years to build up an athlete, so my mindset has kind of shifted to the greatest thing I can do for the program and these student athletes who maybe I'm only seeing for 1 year or one semester, so 5 months, is help them be healthy and available. So how can I aid in making sure they're available for every single match? Because their greatest ability as an athlete is their availability. So my best ability is to be adaptable to help make sure that they're available. So I think my training, I used to have like, okay, this is what the perfect plan looks like. And we're undulating during season. And, you know, we have these blocks of training. And that's just completely gone out the window for me, especially the last two programs I've been at. When I was at NC State, our men's team was like 50% international, 50% transfers, with like 30% of them being grad transfers. And now I'm here and we have 13 new kids, a ton transfers, a lot of seniors. How are we going to win soccer games this year with putting the healthiest squad on the field? So
Kind of within that realm of setting up your like identity for that team. What do you think are like the separators between maybe programs you've worked in or seen that aren't as like successful and good as far as approaching that environment goes? And then what do you do, or what do you think you do better or differently to set your program up in a good way to succeed?
that's my coach's job, to recruit better soccer players. So like, it's funny, but it's like true. I go back to, I spent 6 months at the University of North Carolina. They just won the national championship this past year. A bunch of those girls that were seniors this year were freshmen when I was at the University of North Carolina. And I mean, those girls are just different. Like when you go into a program like that, you're recruiting, like they are recruiting some of the best female youth soccer players in the country, hands down. The majority of that team goes on to play professionally, whether that's they go back to their home country and play, whether they're playing for the women's national team, whether they're playing in a league overseas or in America. There's more girls from that. I was there for 6 months and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all these girls that play professionally, but they're just better soccer players. When I was there, we hardly trained in the weight room. Hardly. Now it's maybe different now. And then I look at what I do here, and it's like I have a very structured approach to training, and there's a lot of value in my role. But I could go take the training I do and do it with another team in the country that has better soccer players, and it's more likely that they're going to win strictly because they're better soccer players. So while I do think my job is valuable and brings a lot to the table when it comes to player health and availability and longevity, I think that for the most part, most of us who are like heavily involved and have a coach that buy into our role as performance coaches in the soccer space are doing the same things for the most part. It looks a little different, but I think that goes for any program across the country. You look at football programs across the country, they're all doing the same thing, just a little different. Like we're just stealing things from each other and calling it different names. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, that was a good answer. I like that.
So on that topic of like physical preparedness, and we could just like briefly touch on this, one of the most like prevalent injuries in soccer, especially female soccer players, is like ACL ruptures. And so what are like the common myths that you come across, and how do you um I guess reduce the likelihood of those injuries happening?
I don't know about common myths. I mean, I think the big, and it's not common myths, I don't know. I think there's myths in what reduces the likelihood. I look at like FIFA has this thing called FIFA 11. It's a warm up. I've never run this warm up. I've worked with soccer for all these years. I'll be honest, I've never looked at the warm up. I don't know what's in the warm up. I know it has like mini band activation and probably a bunch of other things I'm already doing. But I've come in contact with athletic trainers or like soccer coaches that are like, oh, we do the FIFA 11 warm up. Like, and that's why we like don't have any ACLs. No, that's not why you don't have any ACLs. Like my team does those same things and we had ACL. Or like Joe Schmo over here, you know, he did mini band activation as well and he had 6 ACLs. I think that it's a really hot topic right now, but I think for youth athletes, where the answer lies is in consistent performance training. A lot of youth soccer players are just playing so much soccer. I played a lot of soccer when I was youth. I traveled a lot of distance to play soccer, but not at the level that these kids are. Young, especially female soccer players, I'm going to touch on that population. They play for a club team, especially if they're coming to a place like Auburn or a Power 4 school. They're playing in some type of like developmental academy, ECNL, high level club teams. They're traveling across the country to play 1 or 2 games. And then they're also maybe playing with their high school team. So these seasons can overlap sometimes. When they're not doing that, they're doing technical training and going with these skills coaches and pounding like 1-hour sessions X amount of times a week and just repeating the same movements over and over and over again. But they don't have a basis of like physical development. They don't know how to squat and hinge. They don't know how to absorb force. And they most definitely don't know how to change direction. We had an ID camp, so it was all high school age athletes 2 weekends ago, or last weekend actually, and I was warming the kids up and I had some change of direction stuff in there and I was like holding my breath because I'm like, don't let someone get hurt right now. Because watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what these kids need. And I think then you go look at the high school or the college level. The college soccer season is awful. It's so dense. Like our athletes, we start on Tuesday of this week and we play a game on Saturday. And yes, I've been fortunate enough to have my athletes on campus for the last 30 days, but a lot of schools, including SEC schools, don't have that luxury to pay for their kids' summer school and have them on campus training. And so you're going to ask kids to get here and go from 0 to 100 and jump into playing 2 matches a week from August until hopefully December. And then we wonder why we're injured because there's no proper like ramp up or no proper preseason. It's 4 days. And then I think at the professional level, it's also a little different. Like I think we saw a huge spike in ACLs when it was like a World Cup year and people were out for international duty and then would come back to their club teams and jump right back into playing games, and we're playing a load of games and not properly recovering. Then I think the hot thing right now is that FIFA's funding research on the menstrual cycle, and basically their hypothesis is that like the spikes and dips in hormones will like influence joint laxity or ligament laxity, right? And then making you more prone to ACL ruptures. I was talking to my former boss about this the other day because he sent me something on Twitter and he made a really great point, right? I haven't like thought about this point before, but he was like basically like, right, our male counterparts are safer because of the testosterone, but maybe if we just start training our female athletes like in this, we can kind of like close that gap a little bit with training, right? We're not going to produce as much testosterone as our male counterparts, but is there some way through training and performance training and strength training that we can close that gap just a little bit and almost train to like mimic that safeguard that you guys have as males? Now, I don't know how much validity is in this, right? I'm just speaking this out loud on this podcast, but it's an interesting point. I know I said a lot.
No, that was good. So, do you have any advice to like parents or say youth coaches where they are playing year round and they are playing a lot? Like, would you say less of the sports skills and more of like general physical preparedness, or what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I think youth soccer is 10 months year round. Right now is like when it's pretty chill, because there's a lot of times there's not high school soccer going on right now. And club soccer is in like a dead period pretty much in this like 2 month span. It will pick back up here in August, but it's been pretty chill in like June, July, August. phase. And I've been having conversation with some youth soccer players that I work with remotely. And when I get on calls with them, they're like, oh, I have skills training with my like skills coach on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm like, no, like you don't need that. Right now I need Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to be like our performance training, and you need to invest in this time. So that would probably be my like biggest argument in the off season. Like let it be an off season, right? Like yes, our kids need to develop as soccer players, but like let them just develop as athletes. And I think that also we're seeing like a huge burnout rate in youth sports and youth athletes. Like if you just let your kids be kids for a little while, go pick up a basketball instead of a soccer ball and like play some pickup in the front yard with the neighborhood kids, and then go do your performance training.
This is like the third podcast in a row where that's become the common theme, um, both with Tommy Hansen and Dr. Terry Phillips, is that like just because um, just because one of the sports seasons is over, so say you play soccer and basketball, just because the soccer is in their off season doesn't mean that like that is your time off if you're playing another sport that would be in season.
Mm.
And what they both talked about is like you need to have a true off season where general physical preparedness is the focus and what you're doing. It doesn't mean there's no sports skill at all, but like there has to be a period to where that is the focus, or else again that's where those overuse injuries happen, and you never get actual time to develop.
Right. Well, and I think there's a ton of, right. And I understand people are trying to make a living and they're trying to like sell themselves. I'm like, I'm this skills coach, whatever. But I think there's a lot of people on social media and people like that like they know that it's not actually moving the needle forward, but they're just trying to, make money and a career out of it. So it's just unfortunate because I think a lot of youth sports these days, it's like political and money.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and like obviously none of us three are probably ever going to change it. But like you look at these changes that have happened in college and like how big the contracts are at the professional level now. Like there's a lot to be had in sports and professional sports, and so like from young ages, parents or players they just want to work as hard as they can in their sport to achieve as high of a level as possible. But like what these changes have promoted is just I think counterproductive as far as like what our roles are in trying to produce healthy athletes and giving student athletes just that experience as well.
Yeah, because you look back at some of like the greats of sport, like they didn't even have all these resources and they had time off. They were multi-sport athletes. Like they didn't just like nail their craft for 11 months out of the year. So it'll be interesting to see like how it continues to evolve and change over time.
Kind of interesting because there's like almost two ends of the spectrum. Whereas like what you were talking about earlier, there's not enough time to ramp up for the sport and to get used to how your tissues are being stressed. And there's the other end of the spectrum where it's like there's no off season, there's too much. And I feel like sometimes the strength and conditioning staff isn't given to the respect as like we understand physical stress, or we understand stress in general, and we know how to periodize it and dose it effectively. But uh, it's almost like you're stepping on the toes of the sport coach because you might be telling them how to periodize their practices or stuff. But it's like we understand the stress part of the sport.
Yeah, I'm thankful that I'm in a position where I get to do that and my coach trusts me with that. Um, But kind of to backtrack on what you just said, I think where like youth sport and then youth soccer and college soccer differs is there are these like large chunks of time off in college, right? So the soccer season is very dense. It's short but dense. And then they go, there's not many teams playing in December anymore. The national championships like the first, second week of December. So there's not very many teams playing. You're done all December. A lot of teams are done all November, January, half of January. So you had like some programs, like when I was at NC State, we were off for 2.5 months. We didn't touch a soccer ball for 2.5 months. And I gave them training to do, and that's great. But like, I don't know if that much time off is great either. And then they come back for the spring semester and then leave for 2 months for summer. So like, there's like these weird chunks of time off compared to in youth sports, they just don't ever take time off. But kind of back to the physical periodization piece, I'm thankful that the role I'm in, I get to have a voice in that. And I have a coaching, I work with a coaching staff that understands that. So our athletes have been training since June 30th. They wear Catapult GPS devices. They have captain's practice. They do conditioning. I know what the workload has been every single day and the accumulated workload each week. And so that has helped me set, like, I'm going to sit in a meeting tomorrow with our coaching staff and be like, okay, like, here's our threshold for week one. Right, there is going to be a spike. It's just inevitable. Like, we can't, there's going to be one, right? We're adding coaches to the mix that adds a whole different intensity of training and just like nervous system stimulus. And we're playing a match, and people are going to play 60. Hopefully no one's playing more than 60 minutes is the goal. We have an exhibition game, right? But we all want to win. Like, if we're not doing well, people are going to play 90 minutes so we win, you know? Like, people are competing for a spot on the team. So we just know there's going to be a spike, but I think there's a safe and proper way to go about it. And I'm thankful that in my role, I feel like I'm educated well enough on that and have a voice to communicate that with our staff. But I recognize not everyone has that luxury.
For a coach who, once again, like, doesn't have that luxury, do you have any recommendations on going about having that conversation with the sport coach, or maybe recommendations on how they can set up training to kind of, obviously you can't like replace having that hands-on relationship with the team and the schedule, but like, kind of work around that and limit the damages?
Yeah, I think you plant seeds. You're not going to get everything you want right away. I didn't get everything I wanted at all my other jobs. I don't get everything I want here. I think this is my ideal situation and is closest to like what I've wanted for a really long time when it comes to a working relationship and a holistic approach to student athlete care and development of the program. But there's been other places where I just had to sit back and be like, okay, like, this is how I think it should be. At the end of the day, there's hierarchy. You're the head coach. This is how I can influence and educate the staff, and I just keep educating. I keep planting seeds and having conversation and not getting hard feelings, because our coaches just don't know what they don't know sometimes, just like our athletes don't know what they don't know. And we as performance coaches sometimes don't know what the coaches know, right? They know the game to a much more complexity than us most of the time, and like how to coach it, that's their craft. So I think it's just being patient and continuing to build relationships, and that kind of like lets some walls down. But I also always tell young coaches, just because maybe you're trying to help a coaching staff with physical, like, let's talk GPS, with physical periodization. There's things you want to implement. You think this would be really helpful. Still, like, practice those things, still write them down, still draft documents that, like, I would hand a coaching staff this. Like, I hand our coaching staff in a weekly meeting, like, here's my suggestions for physical periodization for the week. What types of drills you can do. Now you tell me what the theme of practice is, and like, let's talk more, right? You can still create those things and have a robust system so that when you step into your next role, it becomes a little bit more natural and it's easy, and you have a structure and a workflow. Because I think that's where I've messed up before. I was in a role where I didn't get to do a lot of that, and then I got thrown in a role where I could do a lot of that. And then I was like, whoa, I'm like so overwhelmed right now, because I know these things, but my delivery of them, I don't have a structure of how to deliver this information. It's just like up here in my brain.
I think it's a relatable sentiment to me, trying to find ways to, because I'm very young, very new to this, but trying to find ways to put what's up here kind of into words or onto paper for people to understand.
Yeah, and you got to meet the coaches where they are at in their language. So I'm not gonna put on a sheet, like, I gave our coach, like, okay, here's our summer calendar on this day, right? We're focusing more on like the phosphagen system. No, I'm not gonna call it that. I'm like, short burst energy system, right? Like, meet our staff where they are, speak a common language as them.
We do the same thing in regards to, like, I guess you could consider educating your athletes too. Like, is this something that you go over with them? Like, hey, this is what we're working on. This is how it's gonna go, or is it more of just like, I don't mean this the wrong way, but hey, I'm the coach. You're gonna listen to what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, I try to do a good job of educating. So I'll just speak into like the time right now. Before we started on June 30th, like, we had a meeting and I laid out for the girls like what the whole month's gonna look like. Like, okay, every Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this, Thursday, Friday, so on and so forth. Right. I gave a brief overview of like why these things are important. Then on that day in training, I'll talk about different things. Like, our kids, like some days they like hate doing all the plyos I have them do. And I'm like, okay, listen, like this is why you gotta do these today. Or, okay, this is why we're doing our acceleration work and I need you to actually sprint the 15 yards that I'm asking you to sprint. And a kid asked me a question the other day. She was like, why is it that like last week we had more reps and this week like we don't have as many reps? Right. And I have to like sit there and explain like, okay, we're tapering like going into preseason. But like I love those types of questions from the kids because then it's just another touch point of like me like showing my value and like helping educate them.
Something that I'm trying to get better at because I've struggled, where like an athlete asks me a question, it's like, let me just grab all the information I've learned the last 4 years and try to consolidate it into one easy answer for you to understand. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's a big value in regards to getting people to buy in, is just how can you explain something in an easy way for them to understand. For me, when I was an athlete, it was understanding in metaphors and analogies. That's the way that I learned the easiest.
Yeah, and the kids just want the simple answer. They don't want like the bullshit, like, oh, I'm super smart and smarter than you answer. They just want you to like be real and be like, okay, yeah, like last week we had 4 sets of 10-yard accelerations and 2 you got reps to the 15, and this week we had 4 to the 15 because we're tapering, we're going to preseason, we're dropping the intensity, volume's not as high. And they're like, okay, cool. And they walk away.
One of the questions I was curious about, and take this like as you will, but
Oh gosh.
from an outsider's perspective, looking at soccer, strength and conditioning, it always seems so like it seems like everyone was doing something different. And this is my take from social media. So it's like there's the prehab people and the agility people, and it's like they're only doing these things. And there's the people who are only doing sprint training. Do you think that like soccer strength and conditioning is going in a similar path in regards to like general physical preparation?
I think that, right, social media is a great place, but it's like a really sticky, tricky one too, because people only show what they want to show. So I think early on, like when I first got to Auburn, I was more vocal about like our speed training. And I even did a podcast and they asked me like my take on conditioning. My take on conditioning is like play more soccer. That truthfully is my take when the kids are here on campus. Now there's a time and place for conditioning, but I think I coined myself of like the anti-conditioning person. No, like I just find a lot of value in like speed development, acceleration work, because those are the moments that matter in soccer, right? So I think people saw that on my social media and were like, this girl hates conditioning, like, right? So I think you have to be careful sometimes with social media. I think that the soccer strength and conditioning space, you see a lot of, and coaches do this and see this too, like our coaches do this to me sometimes, or coaches I've worked with. Oh, well, the pros are doing this, you know, the pros are training on the field with kettlebells. Okay, well, they're professional athletes, like they're no longer developmental in my eyes, right? Their performance coach is strictly worried about like their availability for match day, where our kids are more developmental, right? Like I'm going to get my kids underneath a barbell. Like I still believe in like there's just a culture of our kids aren't all going to go on to play professional. Like we're developing them for lifelong health and longevity, and I want them to confidently walk into a gym one day and know how to front squat, back squat, reverse lunge, hinge, push, pull, do a push up, all those things. So there's a piece of like my work that is that too, outside of just the soccer space. I do think the soccer space is a little like soft sometimes. I think people are like, okay, let's grab dumbbells and like just, you know, do reverse lunge with 20-pound dumbbells. But again, you're just getting a snapshot of what people do. I think also another underlying thing, and this is a little off topic, but on topic, that I'm like passionate about is in the college space, college strength and conditioning, soccer is typically an entry level position, right? Which is great for young people and young coaches to get into a sport that's field based. Okay, you're gonna have to understand energy system development. You're gonna have to teach your athletes to sprint, accelerate, change direction. You're gonna have to train them in the weight room, but there's many components to this sport, plus then the requirements and the things that head coaching staff is going to ask of you. GPS, run a warm up, all the things that I do. Like, every head coach wants that for their soccer program, right? They see this at the pro level, they see it at the power 4 level. Everyone wants that. But then these positions are $35 to $45 to $55,000, and we're asking young people to take on all these roles and responsibilities, and it's overwhelming and they don't know where to begin. And so no one wants to work with soccer, pretty much. Or there's just not a lot of people out there that are really passionate about the sport that want to spend so much time at the soccer field and in meetings with coaching staffs. I know that went a little bit different direction, but
I like that you bring that up because it's interesting that, you have the professional level, there's a lot of money, I guess within just the team itself, maybe not a whole lot of money for like strength and conditioning coaches, but there's more money within the players are worth more. And so you think that like that's the level that might need the best strength and conditioning coaches or athletic trainers. But then it's like that's neglecting that in collegiate sports, like that's where the foundation is made. Like that, those were the first initial building blocks are made, and that's really where really good strength and conditioning coaches need to be. It doesn't need to be just like a low paid entry level position.
right. Yeah, and I think I always tell coaching staffs that I work with, we can't compare like to the professional realm. It's just a totally different population of athletes. Especially when you start looking at like our coaches sometimes, or coaches I've worked with, will look at like things from the men's side of the game and like men's pro soccer. And I'm like, internationally, like the setup of like strength and conditioning, like it's a physio, it's much more that prehab style of things. It's completely different. We can't start like pulling those things in necessarily into our space. Of course, my dog decides to eat for the first time all day right now.
Anthony, you have any other big questions here?
I guess one question to go off that is, have you ever thought about getting, or you said you did have a professional soccer coach job, right?
I interned with Austin FC last summer, which is the MLS team down in Austin. I spent 2 months with them.
Okay. Is that something that like you would like to get into, or is there a certain reason why you go towards collegiate soccer more?
Yeah, I think what I love about college athletics, and what I first fell in love with the first time I did my internship, was you watch athletes walk in as a freshman and as a child and as a kid, and really like underdeveloped and just in shock of like, what is this new adult life? And you get to help them develop not only as an athlete, but more importantly as a person. I think that's the most rewarding part of our job, like working in college athletics a lot of the time. And just you don't get that in the pro space, right? There's still, you build relationships, but they're different. It's a lot more business oriented. And so I did an internship at Austin FC last summer for 2 reasons. One being, I'm a lifelong learner. I want to work with athletes that want to go on to be professionals. So I need to understand what's going to be asked of them at that level, right? I wanted to like get inside there and see what it's like. 2, I wanted to know if I wanted to like work in the professional space one day, and if that's something that would actually interest me and I would find like enjoyment in, rather than like, oh, I just apply for a job, take the job, and then I end up like actually not enjoying the space. I love my job. I don't plan on leaving Auburn anytime soon, but I can't say that I wouldn't explore the professional route if the right opportunity presented itself. But I think it goes back to anything. Who you work for matters in that space. And so just like I moved to Auburn to work for my boss, like that is solely the reason I came here. And for the soccer program, I think I had an opportunity to work alongside someone really great in the field in the professional realm, Dave Tenney, who was at Austin FC, is now at Atlanta United, and how he structures his staff and carries out a very holistic approach to player care, from athletic medicine, physical therapists, athletic trainers, sports science, data analytics, nutrition, sports performance, is unique and different than other clubs. So it'd be all about finding the right fit for myself.
Are you ready for the final question?
Yeah, we can do it. All right. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. We like to end things kind of off with once again, another little fun little question. It's the AAA What's Powering You? I know you're a big proponent of just being consistent in the weight room, following a program consistently. What are your keys right now to being consistent? What's kind of driving your training, keeping it up? Whether it's a new food, some new music that you discovered, or a new program that you just started, what's keeping your training consistent and keeping you going?
Yeah, the thing I've learned about myself is that I can write my own training, but I do better when busy seasons of my life, and really busy seasons. So I'm entering a busy season. I don't want to think about like what I'm going to do in the gym. I just want someone else to write it for me. So I did Joe Padula's training for literally, I think 2 years, almost a year and a half. Joe was an intern when I was a GA at TCU. He's someone I trust, and his training and his philosophy is similar to mine. So I know it was something I was going to like, and I stuck with that. And that was the most consistent I had been. I recently switched and started training with someone else. And that was strictly because I just needed something new. I wanted to learn. I think training with Joe offered me, like, every single day was continued education for me, and that's how I viewed it, right? I was getting better physically myself because I'm training, but I was getting to ask questions and think about training from a different perspective because I wasn't the one writing the training. So I would be right, and I have a good enough relationship. I would text Joe and like ask questions, or it just make me critically think in a different manner, even sometimes. So now I've kind of like switched over to someone else who I think highly of in the field, and they write my training, and I'm paying money for it. So I'm doing it, and through that, right, I'm learning a ton of new things, and thinking in ways that I haven't thought before, and implementing different exercise selection and really honing in on some things that like I've just struggled with, like from like an injury standpoint over the years of like doing stupid things in the weight room. So,
I love that
but
answer. I'm also a big fan of doing other people's programs. Um, I also just hate writing extra programs, so writing for myself, it never gets done.
yeah, I just want to do too many things. So that's just me be like getting honest with myself. Like I want to sprint. I want to go to the field, do on-field work twice a week, have an true acceleration day, true max V day. I want 2 lower body sessions a week, 2 upper body sessions a week. But also like I want to go out and run 15 miles, right? And those don't all like bucket into the same bucket very well. So having someone else that like keeps me grounded is really helpful.
It's awesome. I feel like it's also, like you mentioned, a good way to learn for yourself. I feel like that's something that um, some people might miss, is that you can learn a lot from doing someone else's program.
Yeah, and if you get in with the right person, right? Like I have, right, this person I like text with and ask questions, or we have like a monthly or like every 3 weeks, like Zoom call, FaceTime call, right? Where we like dive into things for like a good hour. And being a coach myself, I'm asking a lot of times like critical questions just to help me learn rather than like, hey, like, can we talk about like my knee bugging me? It's like, no, I'm asking like things about training to like pick their brain to help me develop and learn as a coach.
All right. Well, once again, Mallory, this has been a super fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Um, and yeah, we wish you the best with this upcoming soccer season. Excited to keep up with you. Keep posting on social media. I know we both love your posts, so it was just great to meet you and talk to you.
Thanks. I'm happy we could do this.
All right,
Thank you.
perfect.
Also, in regards to social media, it was funny because I was programming a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I cannot find videos for these movements that I need. And then I was like, I wonder if Mallory has a YouTube with like exercises on it. And I go to your YouTube, and it literally like had a majority of the, because it was mostly like jumping and plyometrics and some
Yeah.
med ball throws. And I was like, oh, Mallory has it on her YouTube. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
stealing a lot of your videos and
So
using them
yeah,
in
please
hyperlinking
go
and
steal my
programs.
YouTube videos. There's a ton more I need to put up there, but like that's what they're there for. I literally all of them are linked to my Train Heroic for things I do on the side with like private clients.
I'll have to tap into those videos too because I am constantly in need of new demo videos, and you
Yeah,
can never record enough. You
some of them are cringy. It's like me trying to like change direction, like do box drills. But as long as they get a good idea of what they're supposed to be doing.
just okay. Actually, I have to ask one more question. If do you ever get really like hateful comments on YouTube on
Yes.
some of these videos? Like they're
It's not even
crazy, so
hateful.
outlandish.
It's really like weird. Some of them are really weird.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
like,
feel
how
like
did you come across this video of me doing like pogos?
exactly. We were talking to another coach a couple weeks ago about this. Like YouTube just seems to be the space where the most activity with my videos happen, as far as just like a random video I post, and then the comments are just absolutely crazy. Some person called Anthony slow in one of his sprint videos.
I
Like
mean, I am slow, but
that's hilarious though.
when like called slow, someone said, "Why are you doing this?" I was doing like a fast eccentric plow push up where the bands were like accelerating me down,
Mm-hmm.
and someone was like, "Why don't you just do a normal push up?" I was like,
Yeah, I get those. Or I like tried posting on like TikTok more, and so like everyone wants to like give their 2 cents, like user 11567. I'm like, okay.
All right. Well, once again, Mallory, good luck with the upcoming season. Have a good rest of your day. Finish the weekend off in an enjoyable fashion here.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.